Hello, here we are for my third match of Season 3 of the GitP Blood Bowl League, playing the Ruddigore Gallery versus the Undead Poets Society. Yet again, they have been cropping up kind of repeatedly in these videos, because, well, you know, each time we played it was an interesting match. I'd say they became a bit of sort of grudge matches to some extent, because I mean, there was that first one where I definitely got outplayed, though I definitely could have done better. And then the second time in the playoffs, which of course looked pretty good for me, and then it all went wrong in overtime. Well, it all went wrong just before overtime, and so now this. So I was hoping for a bit of revenge, if I could get it. But either way, I was expecting it to be a close match. So, if you look at my formation, you'll see that I've abandoned the sidelines, but only the sidelines. In more recent times, I have moved more towards this sort of formation under some circumstances, because really, a lot of the time, you don't mind that much giving up the sidelines. I mean, your opponent can only put 2 players in the wide zone anyway, so anyone else is going to have to go a fairly long distance if they want to get all the way around you. And in the case of a team like Poets Society, they're strongest when they're bunched up together, and they can't get the whole team around the sidelines to bunch up behind you, and if they do, they won't have the ball there. And also, they're a team that goes for the grind. You know, they're not a team that scores quickly. If they score quickly, then I get to receive, and they may not be able to stop me scoring. And so on. And the thing is, if they're just going to slowly grind up the pitch anyway, then I don't need to bother defending an area that they're not going to go for. So yes, I also briefly alluded to they're strongest together, so ideally you want to split them up, which is why you kick deep. The kick in the end didn't go that deep, so they can probably bunch up straight off the bat, but, you know, it was worth a try. So far, this first undead turn has been going swimmingly for me. And, you know, 2 thralls knocked over, but not injured in any way, not even stunned. Yeah, see, you know, I mean, obviously, it could have gone better for me. He could have rolled a load of skulls. But, in practical terms, 3 players knocked over, they can all immediately stand up again. And they're all thralls anyway. I'm fairly happy with this. And if you count the squares from Sir Jasper Murgatroyd to Wordsworth, you will see that even with 2 going for it, I could only get into base contact, I could not blitz. I'm sure that Shishnafmi probably counted those squares as well, and that I counted them at the time as well as while reviewing the video now. So instead of going for the ball, I'm just going to try and wreak some havoc insofar as I can while here. But, of course, given the problems I had the first time I played the Blood Society, with vampires getting stuck on the wrong side of the cage where they weren't helping the defense, I'm being careful not to go too far. Now, definitely considering that 2 red dice block on the mummy, because mummy doesn't have block. It's not, the odds are not that bad. However, I don't remember if I take it or if I get some extra assists to make it just... can I make it 1 die? Yeah, I can make it 1 die. And for the same reason that I was okay... yes, Pushkin has guts, so I have to do it with Sir Mervyn to make it 1 die. Anyway, yes, for the same reason that I wasn't particularly concerned about giving up the sidelines. Well, I'm not concerned about leaving the sidelines still sort of open, and, well, the right-hand sideline really isn't open anyway, because of the tackle zones sort of encroaching on the undead players there. And, of course, the ball is still a way back, so basically all I need to do is just keep my guys bunched up, standing in the way of where he's going to be. Well, where he is, but where he's going to be with the ball once he moves the ball. And I realise, of course, I sort of tried to start selling this match at the beginning of the video as being, a close game with, skillful play, careful positioning, and so far it's been fairly straightforward. But that can happen, because neither of us has any real reason to go for anything like crazy. And it's just the way that the block dice and the injury rolls have been playing out that no one's been injured, no one has broken armor, so we all still have our full complement of players. Rather, we both still have our full complement of players. First injury of the match. So I lose a thrall with wrestle, he also has an armor down. It's not a total disaster. And I haven't really managed to do much to prevent the undead bunching up. But, I mean, on the other hand, this mummy is somewhat out of position, away from the rest of the team, so I'm going to try and keep him that way. Keep him away from the rest of his team, where they're in their sort of position of strength, keep him away from where the action is going on with the ball and everything. Keeping Pushkin with me so that I'll be able to hit him again after he stands up. Hopefully at some point I might score an injury. It could happen. Now at this point I could actually get some Mervyn to blitz. Probably our Browning. follow up, and then he would be marking the ball carrier with his tackle and diving tackle. So bring round a thrall to bite if necessary. And here we go. In retrospect, I think that may have been the wrong decision. I think I should have pushed him more forwards so he was in base to base with Sir Conrad as well. So I'm not entirely sure what I was maybe worried he would have done. Whereas now, like, if he stands up, he's immediately an assist on Sir Mervyn, so... yeah. Okay, and... see, 2 red dice, it can work out. Mummy doesn't have block, so I wrestle him to the ground, and... that means that all he can do is stand up. And then next turn, he'll still be kind of away from where the action is happening, like I said. Reroll gone, that's something at least. Though, as I recall, he doesn't actually end up using that many rerolls. And yeah, see, if I had pushed our Browning to the square that Marlowe is now in, then he wouldn't have been assisting against Sir Mervyn, which would have made things more difficult for the undead. But, you know, apart from that one badly hurt on Matthew Baker, still no injuries, which means I'm still in pretty good shape for defending this. Which, I mean, I kicked, so preventing their touchdown should be enough. Getting the ball off them and scoring myself would obviously be very good, but it's not essential. And I mean, he has 8 turns to score, so it's not that big a deal that he hasn't got past the line of scrimmage by turn 3, but every little helps in the delaying game. However, at this point, having made the attempt to harass the ball carrier directly, I'm a bit more spread out than I possibly want to be, so nothing having come of that ball carrier harassment other than delaying him moving for an extra turn, I should probably try and regroup a bit. So Sir Mervyn should stop eyeing up the ghouls and come back. Okay, yeah, he doesn't have to come back very far. That's fine, because he's kind of cutting the undead off from heading in that direction towards the left. Now, yeah, my... Only stunned. Those three guys are sort of out of it, so my defenses directly in front of the undead and towards the right are maybe a bit lacking. So Roderick could help to cover the right to some extent, and I could move some of these thralls to help cover the middle. So it should be okay, but of course I realise here there is a nice possibility if I can get something good out of this one dice. A push is enough, because the 3 squares I could push him to are all occupied, so I can push him into the ball carrier, who can then be put into a position where he can be blitzed by Sir Roderick. So I'm going to go for this. I mean, again, I suppose even if my defenses end up not so great, like I said, he's not looking to score quickly. He probably wants to spend the entire half scoring, so it doesn't matter as much as it would against, say, elves of any kind. In fact, as I sort of pointed out in some ways, it would be better for me if he scored quickly. Now, I obviously was hoping that the ball would scatter maybe to the right, or like down and right, so it would end up next to Goethe, where I could potentially even try to pick it up. Instead, where it has ended up, that's not so good for me, but I'm delaying him another turn, at least. And yes, as I was saying, if I just keep harassing him, then he may get worried to the point where he will take the quick touchdown, or quicker. At which point, as I said, that then gives me an opportunity to score back on him. So, in principle, this sort of tactic can work, focusing more on aggressive defense, targeting the ball carrier, rather than passive defense, just standing in their way. Though, of course, I like to keep things flexible. Now, yeah. So the thing here is that he kind of, he moved everyone in order to make sure that things would be pretty safe when he made the blitz, even if it failed, which is good. It's good, solid play, but it now means that he's kind of limited for where he can actually take the ball. That, taking it over into that wide zone, pretty much his only decent option. Or leaving it where it was and just hoping that if Sir Roderick did an instant stand up and blitz, that it didn't work out. And then, I mean, there were still potential options for me if he did that. So, this is still, even though I didn't manage to take them all away or anything, this still looks pretty reasonable for me. Plus, I mean, it's 4 turns into the first half in which I was kicking, and the ball is not much further forward than it was from the kickoff. I don't remember exactly how far up the pitch the kick landed, but it it wasn't that far, much further back than where Wordsworth is currently standing. And of course, now, see, I probably would have put Shelley in the square that Sir Roderick is about to dodge into. Because it would have taken a lot more effort for me to actually get a blitz around the right-hand side, I think. At least a blitz that had a reasonable chance of working. Whereas just knocking Byron out of the way and making that dodge, that was fairly reasonable odds for that working. Or at least I might have left Shelley in the middle, so whichever way the blitz came, there would be an assist, and for the instance of Sir Roderick dodging in, it would be a more difficult dodge, which I might not have gone for. Now, Pushkin is actually kind of a problem for me here, because he's in the way. I really want to be moving my players over to the right, but because there's just those two squares between Goethe and Pushkin, there's nowhere I can't get between them without dodging into a tackle zone. So I have to kind of take the long way around, as I am now doing. Which does mean that I'm a bit... My defences are fairly limited, but I do have Sir Roderick sitting right next to the ball carrier, which is something in that regard. And of course, see, at this point I have completely abandoned Chaucer, but as I was saying before, he is now very much away from anything that matters, which was sort of the whole idea. So obviously wants to get rid of Sir Roderick. Makes sense. And reroll. These blocks indeed. So, now result, the ball's not going anywhere. Oh no, the ball is going slightly further backwards. So, my efforts at stalling are working out pretty well for me. Has to take it going for it just to get Chaucer to mark a vampire. And of course now there is less... There are less obstacles to me moving towards the defense, and yes, it was indeed 8 blocked ice. So Yates is actually a potential scoring threat there, so I want to get rid of him. I suppose I could have not tried to get rid of him and figured that the quick touchdown would play into my favour because I'd then have a chance to receive and score myself, but regardless, I want to hit him. He's a valuable target, and I suppose a somewhat easy target given that I have a guy with tackle. Of course, Sir Roderick and Richard Dauntless are kind of trapped. I mean, not entirely. Dodges into tackle zones can work, as I have already demonstrated in this match. But it's not necessarily a risk that I really want to take. And now, here actually, like, including this going for it, which I'm not entirely sure why I did, since maybe I forgot that Yates was there and thought that Cat would then be assisting against Pushkin. But regardless, I'm taking some kind of riskier plays, which I wouldn't normally do, because we both played rather conservatively at the start, and so as a result, look at the rerolls. I mean, now, having ended my turn there without using a reroll, I have more rerolls left than turns. Shishnavni has the same number of rerolls as turns. So, I mean, bearing that in mind, I think I probably should have had Sir Roderick block either Milton or Shelley. But regardless. Okay. So, I mean, maybe, particularly given the Cat, as I realised, couldn't actually assist against Pushkin, maybe I should have left somewhere closer, more left would have been another obstacle in the way of this. However, a point to kind of bear in mind, although, I mean, this is good from Shishnavni. It's good positioning. He's made Chaucer relevant again, which, that's obviously good. I mean, when you have a slow player like that who's just totally out of the action, it does tend to be easier to move the action to them rather than moving them to the action. Now, that move by Chaucer, in fact, those last two moves that he made, I think made things easier for me, because with Chaucer where he was, I would have had to come at Wordsworth from the right, whereas now I can just kind of go around. It may require dodging or going for it, but I can do it. And it's much easier. I can get Sir Mervyn in onto Wordsworth just fine. Particularly since I have these rerolls still. So, moving Chaucer there, I would consider a definite mistake on his part. And dodging Yates away, that did kind of make sense, but if he hadn't, then in some ways it would have been easier for me. And yes, try to hypnotize Goethe for an easier run-in. Which, I mean, that is something which I could still have done if Chaucer hadn't moved. So, I suppose the move of Chaucer was good in that regard. So there are always different elements to whether these sorts of plays are good or not. I was not expecting to successfully pick up the ball, or catch the ball rather, so that kind of threw me, and then I unexpectedly couldn't roll 2 2s out of 3 dice, which was unfortunate. Because if I was still holding the ball here, then things would be looking very good for me. Yes, one other point that I was thinking of making was that although on Shishnapali's last turn he kind of got around me, having the ball having moved forward almost to the line of scrimmage and then back again, managed to get it through a gap in my defences and up into my half. But that aside, I mean, although he did it well, it wasn't as safe at that point as when it was still back in his half, and so that was kind of a relevant factor, because generally there is a way to get the ball through the enemy's defences, but it may be riskier than leaving it where it is. Certainly if the defences are good, and you can, if you get to a situation where it's getting late in the half and you still haven't made that progress, then you start doing something which may look good, but maybe a few choice plays show that there are problems with it. And so really it still makes sense, because it's like, well, you have to do something, but you're potentially giving yourself more problems. And now here is also a thing. He should not have blocked Sir Roderick. As it was, Sir Roderick was sandwiched between 2 players. After being pushed to here, it's a much easier dodge out to blitz. I mean, it's... Whereas if he'd still been where he was before, it would have been a dodge into a tackle zone before making the dodge into empty space, and then there would also have been a going for it at the end. It's 2 more dice rolls, a 3+ and a 2+, that I would have needed to make. So yeah, he made it easier for me to get the ball here. And of course, crucially, choosing to blitz from the side of Wordsworth rather than the diagonal, because it would allow me to push him into Sir Jasper to get that extra block, which turned out to be crucial. And so now Sir Mervyn is stood up just to mark guys. And then let's try and pick up the ball. success. And now I have two options here. I could dodge out backwards and be somewhat safe with the ball, or I can dodge through our Browning's tackle zone and then out, going for it as well, and pass the ball up the pitch to Rache. And the second option is the one I'm going for. I mean, I still have a re-roll, so it's reasonable. If I pass from here, there is the risk of an interception, so I figure, well, there was a 1 in 6 chance of me failing the going for it, there was a 1 in 6 chance of the zombie making the interception. I figure that if that was going to fail for me, I would rather drop the ball than have it intercepted. Now there, I really should have probably only made the one going for it, because there was always going to be an angle from which Rache could be blitzed could be blitzed favourably, indeed, wherever I put Richard Dauntless, but at least I would have had someone else there. It would have been a bit more difficult, positioning-wise, for Shishnaki to pull off. And I would have had someone to retrieve the ball. Obviously, I didn't know I was going to fail the second going for it, but I mean, it was also one less dice roll. And the reroll was gone at that point. Now, it is impossible for him to score. That's the other aspect, which was relevant, that I will have realised in my previous turn. He couldn't score, so there was no... As far as the result of the match was concerned, I wasn't risking anything significant. But, oh, no, sorry, Yates is there. I did not... Because of the view I was on, I didn't realise Yates was there. It was highly unlikely he was going to score, though, because it would have been quite a long pass. So now, all there is for me to do is hit all these guys and hope for star player points. And I suppose try to pick up the ball and get a random completion. Or maybe I'm not bothering with that option. And I finally get the double skulls. But regardless of that failure at the end to do anything, this still should be a good situation for me. You know, I have managed to weather the undead offense. They received the ball and did not score, so in theory this is in my favour, because now I'm receiving and I can score, so long as they don't do to me what I have just done to them. As you see, the undead adopting a similar sort of approach to one I did. They're not bothering to cover the sidelines. or even cover the wide zones at all. And it does kind of make sense, because I also am not planning on scoring particularly quickly. Also, the layout of tackle zones, I don't know, what does that look like to you? It's a bit like sort of an arrow, I suppose, with a very short stalk. Or maybe a cupcake. Yes, regardless. Since I am short Richard Dauntless, I have gone back to setting up a thrall and vampire in the backfield ready to retrieve the ball, because I'd rather have the Agility 4 pickup in the absence of the Agility 3 sure hands. Otherwise, just spread out, ready to hit things, and potentially advance up the pitch a bit. So let's take down these zombies. Wrestling a zombie to the ground, pretty good deal, because they only have 4 movement, so he'll be able to move 1 when he stands up. Not waste a reroll on Bloodlust this early. And of course bite the thrall, who is already knocked down. Now naturally, the ghouls are the prime targets for blitzing, because they're valuable and have lower armor, don't regenerate, and I have a vampire with tackle, so that will probably be happening in a bit, but clearly I want to go for the ball first. Initially moving up Mr. Waters here. Okay, no, moving up Maurice Waters just as a bit of extra defense, and now coming around the back for this blitz. Unfortunately, I'm having similar luck with injuries to what Shishnavni had in the first half, in that I haven't caused any. Well, I mean, I stunned one of my thralls, but that doesn't really count. So, again, it seems like this is maybe going to be a bit of a slow start. I've got the ball safely pretty much up to the line of scrimmage. There are no obvious gaps in my defense for him to run through to threaten it. But I mean, I kind of want to run the clock down a bit before I even consider scoring. So it seems that he's going to surround Sam Debut over there. Actually use a reroll on that Mummy Blitz. I'm not so sure that I would do that not this early on in the half, because that reroll could come in pretty handy later. And I'm not entirely sure how much he's going to get out of that. He's doing pretty well with the... I mean, his team is spread out, but... they're covering pretty much everything, such that, I mean, the clearest line that I have to try and move the ball up the pitch would be straight down the middle of it, which, of course, keeps my options open for switching to one of the sides, but it also means that he could then just close in and kind of sandwich me in the middle of all his players, which would be less good. And I'm still not getting these injuries. And now here we go, still covering things, so there are still no significant gaps where he could get through to my ball carrier. And yeah, the best way to get Sam out of that was to red dice block. And so it was best to do it on the Mummy, because the Mummy has the least defensive skills. Oh, well, the relevant point is that it doesn't have dodge. Also because getting through the Mummy leads back towards the rest of my team. Now, it looks like I may be wanting to shift things over towards the right-hand side, which would make some sense. There's a bit of a weighting towards the left. Whereas if I could move up the right, so Mervyn and Sam are already kind of forward in that direction. And there's just the one Mummy, one Ghoul, and one White really in the way currently, though obviously other players can move. The problem with bringing Mad How around there is partly that he's not really doing anything there at the moment, and partly that now Han Morris is a clear point of weakness. Blitz him out of the way and you can get to the ball carrier, which he's now about to do. Does use up the blitz, so the ball is still safe, but this will force me to start actually moving forwards very definitely, which does probably mean leaving behind some of my security. Of course, since he's coming around behind me, moving forward may also mean leaving behind some of my opponents. So, it's always important to consider this sort of balancing act. But I probably should have left Mad Hal where he was, so that I couldn't end up with this happening. I still would have had some chance to maybe advance a little bit. And, I mean, I have another 6 turns to score, so wouldn't have been that much of a problem. But regardless, I can still make something of this. Because, see, I block Shelly out of the way here. Move up Rocket. And I'm heading towards being able to move up in relative safety to kind of pretty much the middle of... I mean, it is relative safety, but that's still reasonable. To the middle of Shishnabni's half. Now, here's where it becomes not so good, because Bloodlust causes me problems. Now you see, I mean, maybe I should have rerolled that Bloodlust, I don't know. But, of course, if I had not failed Bloodlust there, then Raka would still be standing up, and I would therefore have 2 players handily standing between Shelly and a bunch of other undead players, blocking the route to where Sir Roderick is soon going to be with the ball. At least he didn't fail his Bloodlust, so I get to keep Mad Hal there for my defense. And Samdegu, of course, being already up there, can get round, since they kind of abandoned the idea of completely surrounding him in favour of moving forwards, making all of them agree to another failed Bloodlust. This is still a problem. But Pushkin is knocked down, and indeed knocked out. Though Sam is also knocked out, and which is unfortunate, because that would have been another defensive player around the ball carrier. I mean, just look at this. Imagine if those 2 thralls who I have removed from the pitch via Bloodlust were still there. How much safer would my ball carrier be? Now I finally do reroll Bloodlust, and it fails. And this is the big problem, because even with the problems I had with the Bloodlust, Sir Jasper is somewhat blocking off attack from those guys in the middle. And Mad Hal and Sir Mervyn are kind of blocking off the route of approach from the right. Wordsworth is the only real threat left, which is why I wanted to blitz him with Sir Conrad, shove him onto the sidelines, so if he was still standing, he would have difficult time getting anywhere. But one last failed Bloodlust, even after the reroll, means that I can't do it, because I didn't have the movement to blitz Wordsworth and then go by to Thrall, I don't think. I suppose with a going for it and a dodge, and I'd already used the reroll, and given the number of ones I'd rolled that turn, I was sort of worried about the possibility he didn't want to end up with Sir Conrad leaving the pitch. And, oh, like, look there at where Goethe is standing in. If Rache was still on the pitch, he would have needed to dodge there. Dodge into 3 tackle zones. Still ends up needing a reroll to knock the ball loose, but loose it is knocked. This is looking pretty grim for me, just because of that one turn of 3 vampires needing to feed. And messing up all my defences. This is why you should think carefully before choosing to play vampires. Can you handle this sort of stuff ruining your plays? Fortunately, he tries to pick up the ball and it scatters very favourably for me. Suddenly, I am potentially back in this. I say potentially. It's still not really set. But I have a chance now, so move Maurice Waters because that requires no rolls, and then there is nothing else I can do usefully that doesn't require rolling dice. So, I mean, first big question, do I block Marlowe straight off? 2 red dice, though he has no defensive skills, or do I dodge out Sir Jasper to be an assist with his guard? Now I remember which decision I make, but you viewers, shall be left in suspense. But not for very long. So here we go. Odds were fairly reasonable, so because at this point I really have to just assume that Bloodlust won't screw me over, because I don't have thralls in the right places to deal with it that well. So, blitz. Now, here of course, the slight problem with West Jasper is in that I am forced to push Marlowe into the ball, which then means I use up more movement in subsequently picking up the ball and can't actually make it to the end zone this turn. Which is unfortunate. Whereas if I could have broken the rules and pushed Marlowe into one of my own players, even though there was an empty square, then the ball would have been right in front of me. Would have taken 2 less movement to pick it up. I would have been able to make it into the end zone with only 1 going for it, as opposed to just outside with 2. also Mad How, now kind of stuck. So I'll take this one dice, move Wordsworth one square further away from the ball, for all the good it'll do, also marking our Browning, for all the good that'll do. I have to keep making these somewhat desperate plays. Wow, those are a lot of difficult dice rolls. I'm surprised that I actually went for that, but I mean, if it worked, then things would have been much more secure for me. But the odds of it working... Whereas I definitely could have gone for something more likely to work. Though as it turns out, I just rolled a 1 for the dodge, so it didn't matter what I was actually trying to do. And so now I just have to hope that he also has bad luck with the dice rolls. As he does! Huzzah! Now all I need to do is roll a 2 for Bloodlust and a 2 to dodge into the end zone. And then defend for 4 turns. Simple enough. But still, do stuff that doesn't require dice rolls first. Mark Coleridge there, so he can't interfere. Move up. I've already stood up Matt Howe to mark Wordsworth. Move up Houghton Morris to also mark Wordsworth. I don't need to worry about marking R. Browning because he's stunned. Fail Bloodlust. It's fine, I'll re-roll it. And then fail the dodge. And, yes. Quite. I mean, neither one of us was having particularly good luck with dice rolls this match. I certainly don't wish to suggest that the bad luck was all mine. He really should have been able to make that dodge, and he shouldn't have taken 8 block dice to move Sir Roderick 1 square in the first half. But still, it is very frustrating. In contrast to the first half, where it seemed that we were sort of struggling a bit to find uses for our rerolls, here we have plenty of reasons to use the rerolls, and they don't necessarily do anything. Of course, I mean, this is the sort of level of bad luck in Blood Bowl which you really can't plan for. Scoring there for me, the odds were pretty good of it working. But it didn't. It was still my best option, so it was the right thing to do. And of course the throw-ins are so random, you really can't plan for them at all. Because a throw-in could basically land on any square of the pitch. I mean, I'm not sure if it could be literally any square of the pitch, but regardless, it is more squares of the pitch than it is possible for you to put tackle zones on with only 11 players. If you still have 11 players on the pitch, which I don't. So, standing up Catblade, the one thing which does not require dice rolls. And of course, I realise that the dice rolls involved in moving a thrall to where he could potentially be bitten if I felt bloodlust are more difficult than the dice roll to not fail bloodlust. So I just have to hope that I don't fail. And, well, Sir Conrad did not. He has no need to bite anyone. And after a reroll, my last reroll, he has knocked the ball loose. And picked it up. But, I mean, given the luck that I have been having no rerolls for my remaining 2 and a bit turns, there's probably stuff that is going to go wrong. Probably spectacularly so. Okay, so Han Morris standing up also requires no dice rolls, but I might have wanted to move him. So now, again, hoping that Bloodlust doesn't screw me over, figuring out Sir Jasper has dodge, so this is one respect in which I do still have a reroll available. On the other hand, Sir Roderick doesn't need to dodge, so let's do him first. And I mean, this is all I can do, but with how chaotic this half has been, both of our teams are fairly significantly spread out. Wow, that's a... I suppose it's not that crazy, actually. But then I failed the first dodge, in any case. Yeah, our teams are somewhat spread out, so it's not going to be that easy for him to get a favourable blitz on Sir Conrad. Not impossible, but not as easy as it might be under more normal circumstances. Certainly, compared to how isolated Sir Conrad is. Here we are, he has set it up. He's ready to take this 1 dice blitz on Sir Conrad to try and recover the ball. Although, once he takes it, and, well, uses the reroll to actually knock him over, there's the question of who is actually going to pick that ball up. Does Coleridge have movement left to do it? He did have movement left to do it, but he's not going to. He is instead going to move into scoring range. Obviously, assuming that I won't manage to recover the ball myself, which, given the positions of all my players, it looks like a not too unreasonable assumption. I still might have attempted to pick up myself. Seems like it would have been a safer option. Particularly, I mean, with Sir Conrad stunned, and then he'd still have some movement to move a bit further away after picking it up. So what can I do? Well, I can mark Yates. Only requires 1 going for it, so the odds were reasonable. And he's presumably going to be the one to try and pick the ball up. So obviously I want to do that. Now, well, do things that don't require rolling. Maurice Waters may want to move after he stands up, so I can't really do him. I would love to stand up Sir Mervyn in the end zone so he could potentially receive the ball if I get it, but that would require another roll, and would therefore be a risk. So instead, Sir Roderick, standing blitz. And take the ball. See, if he'd picked the ball up, as I just failed to do, if he'd picked the ball up, then obviously I couldn't have done that, because Sir Roderick really needed that blitz just to get out of the tackle zones he was in. Otherwise it was couple of difficult dodges. Oh, well, a dodge into one tackle zone and then a dodge into empty space, which obviously the second one would not be difficult, but regardless. Yeah. So here we go. All my luck has deserted me, clearly, and I just have to hope that his luck has also deserted him. I don't think I would be making some of these blocks because they're not affecting anything important. I mean, yeah, sure, star player points. Useful in the long run. The way my luck is running, I feel like I could suffer a worse injury in the one turn each that we have left. It's highly unlikely, but I mean, on the other hand, he was a thrall with no skills, so I don't really care that much. But, you know, I would have... Oh, shut up. I would have tried to pick up the ball sooner, that being the important thing, and done the hitting afterwards. I suppose 2 dice blocks have better chances than pickups, so that's the thing. And Bloodlust has failed, so I'm going to be able to make this blitz. But then I'll have to leave. I'll have to end the pitch and have Sir Roderick leave the pitch. So I just have to make it so he can't score. I had a bit of a brain failure here in that I realised that if I knock over Coleridge, then Yates is the only one in scoring range, and he can't pick up the ball and score because it will take some extra movement to go and pick up the ball before running it in. Completely failing to note the point that, oh wait, someone else can pick up the ball and give it to him. So at this point I thought he couldn't score, and then I suddenly realised that he could. And in turn realised that actually the best defensive strategy that I could have employed would have been after knocking out what's his name? Coleridge. I should have then picked up the ball, as you see I'm just typing out. I should have picked up the ball and run somewhere. Specifically, I should have picked up the ball and run onto the sidelines, hoping that when Sir Roderick left the pitch, either because he failed going for it or just, failed for the bloodlust. In any case, the ball would scatter off the pitch and go somewhere completely unhelpful. But in the end, whilst going for it, failed into the end zone, which it felt somewhat comparable to my earlier failure with Sir Mervyn. So I definitely did feel like that was a fitting end. Perhaps not a spectacular match, but a very well played one. Despite the luck of the dice being heavily against both of us. So that is that, and I'll see you for the next video.